The presidency has released a statement congratulating the government and the people of Zimbabwe for organizing and holding the harmonized elections to elect the president, the National Assembly and local government representatives. Its statement goes on to say that South Africa is conscious that these elections took place under a difficult economic environment due to the burdening sanctions which the people of Zimbabwe continue to unjustly endure. Furthermore, the statement says South Africa takes note of the preliminary pronouncements by the invited international observers missions, including the African Union and the South African Development Community Observer missions. South Africa is calling on all the parties in Zimbabwe to work in unison towards sustaining peace and work towards development and shared prosperity in the country.
And let's stay with this particular story and speak now to Farai Marapira, who is ZANU-PF's Acting Director for Information and Publicity. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Let's just start, of course, with the ZANU-PF's reaction to the results that has been declared. I'm almost certain that you must be elated.
Well, we are very, very elated, and we feel justified for all the programs and projects that have been done by President Mnangagwa since 2018. The people of Zimbabwe have taken note of all the efforts of ZANU-PF under his leadership towards working on the economy, and they've come out and they've voted in solidarity with his work. So we are very elated, we are energized, we are ready to go. We will not spend much time focusing on celebrations. We have a lot of work to do. Our economy still needs attention, and we are hitting the ground running because we have a mandate to deliver from the people that have voted us back into office.
And I'm certain you've also seen what the CCC is saying, its leader calling the election results a sham and saying it's a blatant, gigantic fraud, and that they're now exploring various avenues to possibly challenge this. How do you respond?
Zimbabwe is a democracy, and the CCC has got every right to pursue each and every avenue within legal confines to seek redress if they feel that there is any challenge. However, as ZANU-PF, we are the only party that had agents at each and every polling station. No other party had agents at each and every polling station. So we did an independent tally as ZEC was collating, and our numbers are moving very well and are totally in agreement with ZEC. But if the CCC feel they've got a case, then they're welcome to do it as long as they're within the confines of the law.
Speaking about, the presence at the polls, I'm sure you saw what some of the observers have said about this particular election, and I'm keen to stay with this particular aspect of presence. They say that illegal activities of what appears to be a ZANU-PF aligned organization calling itself Forever Associates Zimbabwe, which is believed to have been intimidating and coercing people, particularly in rural areas, to vote for the governing party, and that they also set up their exit at the exit of the polling stations. They were running surveys where they're asking voters to complete certain documentation indicating how they cast their ballots. Firstly, is this true?
It is patently false in the sense that there is nothing criminal about an organization holding exit polls. Where you are in South Africa, you also hold exit polls. Forever Associates of Zimbabwe is an independent juristic person which is affiliated to ZANU-PF. They decided to hold exit polls. And according to the laws of Zimbabwe, this is not illegal as long as people are not doing any political activity within 300 meters of a polling station. Nowhere in Zimbabwe was any exit poll being conducted within the 300-meter confine of a polling station. So it is quite unfortunate that you find people trying to make an illegality out of a legal action. Zimbabwe is not the only country that does exit polls. In the by-elections that we were holding about a year or so ago, we held this group also did these exit polls, but there was no noise about it. But now, because we've come into the general elections and some people are sore losers, they are now trying to harp on this and make it look as if it's an illegality when this is common practice across the world. Exit polls are simply when an organization is making a survey from voters after they've voted. So how can you intimidate someone after they've voted? Can they go back and change their vote? I do not think so. So that is it. These are perfectly legal. It's a survey after people have voted, just noting if they're willing. No one is coerced to answer or forced. People are asked in exit polls, this is standard practice across the world. Are you willing to answer our question? They say yes. Who did you vote for? If they feel free, they say so. If they're not free to say so, they simply refuse and move on. So to say exit polls are legal everywhere else except in Zimbabwe, and only in Zimbabwe are exit polls intimidation, it's quite worrying in terms of the defending of democracy itself.
In your view, then, if this is so legal, as you say that it is, why then would the observer missions take issue with this and raise the alarm bells around this? And also, two, why would there be concerns that some were intimidated through this particular process?
It's very simple, Madam. If anyone is alleging, they should prove. All these allegations of intimidation, I have not seen a single iota of evidence. We have come to this realization as ZANU-PF, which is why we're not really focusing much on all of these accusations. It is standard practice now for our opposition to go through Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of depression after a loss. We are replaying the same 2018 card. On the 24th of July, the leader of the opposition came out on a private newspaper here in Zimbabwe called the Newsday and stated that there was no way this election could be rigged. Now, after losing, they're saying that the election has been rigged and there's been all these anomalies. But then I'll ask you, why are opposition MPs already celebrating and announcing their wins? If they've won from a flawed poll? These are the questions that need begging. Yeah. Are they sincere in their accusations or they are grandstanding? If they're sincere in their accusation, then us as well as the rest of the world are expecting to see evidence. And unless and until there's evidence, we are not going to take any of these allegations seriously. So, remember, ZANU-PF is also a player. We are not the arbiter of these elections. The arbiter is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. So for the opposition to try and nail each and every one of their issues upon ZANU-PF is playing to the gallery and running away from common sense and true facts of reality. We need serious political maturity within our body of politics. We need to approach matters seriously. If they've got evidence, they know the channels that are legal to get their issues resolved. So, we urge them to do so.
Mr. Marapira, one of the things that, of course, is you can take into account here in this conversation is that it's not only the opposition, for example, that has raised concerns. There's also the observer missions. I'm sure you've seen what they've had to say. And one of the things that they've also said is that, and I'm borrowing from one of the interviews that were done, if the process is flawed, then the result is not legitimate. How then do you begin to also factor in what the observer missions are saying? Because they are saying that it doesn't look like all was above board in terms of the process.
Observer missions do not come to our elections to judge. They come to observe and to give comments. What observer missions have given, by and large, are preliminary reports. So we believe that they're going to seek deeper investigation of matters, and when the final reports come, then we learn and we take stock of what they've said. We are not going to stop much and wait on preliminary reports. We're going to wait for them to finish their investigations, come up with the final reports, and then we see what we can do after that. But we respect all observers. This has been one of the largest attended elections. We've invited so many observers. We had more than 4,000 observers in this country for these elections because we want something which is free, fair, and transparent. We have nothing to hide. We are open to criticism. We are open to advice. We are open to views. But we also have a right of reply. Yeah. So it's unfortunate that we are supposed to be assumed to be a party which should just accept comments and not have a right of reply on those comments.
But are you taking what they said seriously?
Very much so. Very much so. If you look at the recommendations that were made in the 2018 elections, by and large, we have followed most of those recommendations. We have opened up our media space. These are things that most of the media is not reporting on. We have got 7 independent radio stations now. We've got 5 independent TV channels, which we've opened up in Zimbabwe since 2018. You can find that the opposition was getting a lot of airplay, even on state media everywhere. We are following very closely the recommendations of observers and developing our democracy as we go. So you remember. Sorry, you can ask.
Okay, I just wanted to say that on that point of the media, though, there were also some who were concerned about the fact that they were not allowed to come into the country, accreditation not being approved, but others were also asked to leave the country. And I wonder what was happening there.
Well, ZANU-PF is not the party that accredits. There's organizations that do that. And we believe those institutions know the reasons best why they were doing so. Remember, if you're going to come as an observer, but you've been a known activist, I don't think it is correct for us to accept someone like that to come in as an observer. Because if an activist is going to come in as an observer and someone has made their political stance clear on matters of a country which is holding polls, are those people going to come in and suddenly lose their affinity for certain political stances and choose to be properly objective? What we wanted to do is to run an election. What we wanted to do was to run a peaceful election, objectively reported on, objectively assessed, and something which leaves the Zimbabwean people more united, more together as one. We need to stop looking at elections in Zimbabwe as war zones, as reasons for people to hate one another, as reasons for people to castigate one another. We need to understand that a differing in ideology and thoughts is the basis which makes us stronger. We liken elections and differences in political thought to the mixture for concrete. You would take stones, cement, and sand and water. Without any one of these, the cement isn't strong. So when we come in with different political ideologies, we create a stronger nation. So it is necessary for us to differ ideologically as we go towards elections, because that is what builds a stronger country, because we are viewing matters from so many different angles.
Yeah.
And from those so many different angles, we come up with the correct one, and we are stronger as a people. So we need to stop allowing people who want to make our elections a cause and a reason for Zimbabweans to hate one another.
How then, I'm a little, confused. How do you then balance, because these are ideologies that you talk about that are different, that you say must be, tolerated going into the polls, but at the same time, if there are activists that are known to be activists, agitating towards a different kind of view than you would hold, how is that democracy? How is that not allowing a different voice to be voiced out, even during the elections, confidently saying that you are allowing these different ideologies? When are they allowed and when are they not allowed?
When we're holding elections,
is that
and
democracy?
We invite observers. I'm answering your question. When we hold elections and we invite observers, we are not inviting activists. We're inviting people with the capacity to objectively assess a process, with the capacity to rise above whatever opinions they have. We're inviting people who are going to be giving an honest assessment of each and every aspect of our elections.
All right.
Are you answered?
Not so much, Mr. Marapira, but I'm told we're out of time. So let me thank you for your time. I hope we speak again, because
thank you very much.
It is a little confusing, and we're still trying to understand exactly what it all means. But let's see then what happens when the CCC, because we've also reached out to them, when we talk to them and we get to understand how are they hoping to either challenge or look at this particular result and hopefully speak again. That was Farai Marapira, ZANU-PF acting Director for Information and Publicity. As said earlier, we've also reached out to the Citizens Coalition for Change for their take on the situation.